I want to go back to something you said about the Beyond Burger, because I mean, I think I've heard that. I feel like I hear it almost every day. Oh, it's worse for you than the real thing. And you had mentioned something, like it's not. And when your kids go over to family, that they'll throw a Beyond Burger on. When you look at the ingredients, it's certainly some good proteins, and it makes a complete protein because it's beans and the brown rice. So, because it's gotten flack of that, but it does make a complete protein. It's got pea protein in it. It's got mung beans in it. But it also has canola oil, refined coconut oil, and cocoa butter, which I think all three of those would be something that you probably wouldn't recommend as a salad dressing or on a piece of toast. So talk us through why it's better than the animal-based version.
Well, there's actually a few different reasons, more than one reason. So we got to think about both the number one killer and the number two killer. Number one killer being heart disease, number two killer being cancer. First of all, red meat is very strongly linked to more than one different type of cancer. Processed meats even more. So we already have solid research to say that red meat is really bad for cancer risk, no question, and very, very similar for heart disease risk, heart attack, stroke, atherosclerosis, clogging of arteries. So, I mean, we already have that data. Now, nobody's done randomized controlled clinical trials of Beyond Burger versus, a red meat burger. So we can't really make conclusions about risk of a Beyond Burger. All we could do is kind of analyze the ingredients, like you were saying, and try to think, are the ingredients within a Beyond Burger lower risk, same risk, or higher risk than what you would think you get from an actual red meat burger? From a heart disease perspective, red meat will have not only cholesterol in it, but a lot of saturated fat. And the animal-based protein is certainly much more acidic and is much stronger linked to overall all-cause mortality in many different publications, including heart disease. And it has to do with the types of amino acids that are in there, being more acidic, et cetera. But it clearly, we know that's linked, whereas the plant-based proteins are not linked with early death or all-cause mortality. So right there, we have the animal protein versus plant protein benefit when you compare the two. We know that plant-based foods have no cholesterol in them. And while dietary cholesterol might not be as critical as saturated fats are, they're still important. And so the statement from the National Academy of Medicine says, individuals should eat as little cholesterol as possible while consuming a healthy eating pattern. Well, as little as possible, 0, because cholesterol is not an essential nutrient. You're going to get cholesterol if you eat red meat. You don't get any cholesterol in a Beyond Burger. Now, they make a very similar statement about saturated fat, that they did not set an upper limit for how much saturated fat is safe to eat, because any saturated fat you eat above 0, any amount, will raise your LDL cholesterol number, and LDL is so critical. When you think about red meat, there's a significant amount of saturated fats in there. Coconut oil. There's a lot of saturated fat in coconut oil.
Yeah.
There's 6
grams of saturated fat in the Beyond Burger, like 20 total. They've made a lower fat version now, that's 14, but
they did. Yeah. Absolutely. So when you compare directly, which one has more saturated fat? It's the red meat burger is going to have more saturated fat than the Beyond Burger.
How much saturated fat in a regular meat burger?
I don't know the exact number, but it's probably half or less in the Beyond Burger compared to a red meat burger. Okay. And it depends on what type of red meat, how lean it is that you're getting. But it's going to be less saturated fat in the Beyond Burger. So if you just analyze the actual ingredients, having plant protein, no cholesterol, and less saturated fat, I mean, that's a winner right there. There's no question that if America shifts away from red meat burgers to Beyond Burgers, there is going to be a significant reduction in heart disease risk. Is there going to be any cancer risk from eating processed foods? Probably not. Honestly, I mean, we have no reason to suspect that any of the ingredients in the Beyond Burger are going to, increase the risk of cancer. But we already know that red meat does. We already know it. So it is a huge step in the right direction to eat a Beyond Burger over a red meat burger. Now, of course, even better would be to eat a black bean burger of some kind. But it is what it is.
I just looked it up, and then it looks like a 6-ounce Beyond Meat burger, which is what they are, is, as you said, Dotsie, did you say it was 6 ounces of saturated fat? In a red meat burger has twice that.
6 grams. Yeah.
Twice
that.
About
twice that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
You were right on.
And that's their original one. They've created a 30% lower fat one that's 14 grams of regular fat, and I think it's like 4 saturated fat. So you can get a leaner Beyond Meat burger if you want now.